Welcome back to the Coach Bauman channel. Today we're going to be talking about long irons. More specifically, what's exactly required in order to hit a long iron well, and why it's so difficult to make happen in the first place. Now again, I'm not going to go through the exact mechanics of the golf swing. That's not what we're talking about. I'm just giving you the few pieces that have to happen if you are going to hit a long iron well. Regardless of what your swing looks like, if you can get these few things to happen, you can hit your long irons. In order to work on this, all you're going to need is whatever long iron of your choice, a few range balls, and a place to hit. Now again, before we even talk about anything else, let's talk about how to set up to a long iron. I see all too often when people are setting up to their long irons that their pelvis and their sternum are displaced from each other. We've got to avoid that. So what I mean by that is when they're at their actual setup, you can see that their sternum is either in front of their pelvis or way too far behind their pelvis. We don't want much of that. We can have a little bit of shoulder tilt, but we don't want to get our sternum and our pelvis way out of alignment with each other at address. So in order to avoid that, we're essentially going to set up to this 4-iron a lot like how we set up to our 3-wood and our driver in my last few videos. For any of your long irons, I want your ball position to be somewhere between 2 to 3 golf balls inside of your lead heel. Now, one of the easiest ways to check and see if you're in the correct ball position while you're using a long iron is first toss an alignment stick down level with the golf ball so that we know where that ball position is. When you take your first step with your lead foot, we are looking to take a step wide enough to where that lead heel is roughly 1 club head away from the alignment stick. Put it that far away, that's where your ball position is. After you've got that lead heel 1 club head away from the alignment stick, take your trail foot and just take a step that makes both of your feet roughly shoulder width. Now that you're here, we are going to go through the same process as a 3-wood or driver. We are going to stand straight up in the air, getting everything 50-50 and everything stacked right over top of itself. I'm not turned any direction or anything crazy. From here, now I will bend straight over, staying 50-50 until the club head's on the ground. Again, it's going to be 2 to 3 inches behind the ball when you get here. When you get into this position, we're not looking for our chest to be way forward or way backwards. Best you can, keep everything nice and stacked. Once you're here, now we will move the hand shaft and club head up to the ball. That'll give you the appropriate amount of shoulder tilt. And that's where you're going to hit your long irons from. If you're going to do anything, leave your chest slightly behind your pelvis, never out in front. Now for starters, I'm going to explain why long irons are so difficult in the first place. So I'm going to use this can of spray paint here to hopefully get that point across. But once you understand what needs to happen conceptually, a lot of times that's enough to make the difference and to get the change into your golf swing. So with this can of spray paint, I'm just going to draw a half circle or our arc on the ground. You can call me Picasso. Now here's a few things, and I need you to follow me for a second. I promise I will do my best to make this make sense, and if it makes sense to you, I truly believe that it will change your long iron game. Now this path or this arc that I drew on the ground, you cannot avoid it. It is part of your swing, so you have to understand how to use it. Down the road, once you understand how to use it, it's also how you manipulate and change your ball flights. We'll talk about that later. If you want me to make a video on that, drop a comment down below so that I know you want to see that. So one of the main reasons that nobody talks about why the shorter irons are easier aren't just because the club's shorter and that there's more loft, but when you set up to it, when it's in the middle of your stance, you are on equal parts of the arc. So one side is not as important as the other. If you mess up one, it's not going to make that big of a difference in your golf swing. But as you go up in club and the ball goes more up in your stance, this is where a lot of people mess this little piece up. So I want you to hear this loud and clear. We don't necessarily just move the ball forward on the arc to where it's on the forward part of that arc, to where the arc is traveling more left. It's actually much more about us moving back on the arc. So I'm moving my body more into this back section of the arc in order to move the ball more up in my stance. So because I've moved my body more onto the back section of the arc, I am dealing more with this back section, which means that this back section is way more important. We've got to put a little bit more emphasis on what's happening back here in order to make the long irons work better for us out there. Hopefully that makes sense, and it's going to bring me to my next point on why the downswing in long irons is so important, because we're not just shoving this ball forward and hammering over the top and getting on that forward piece of the arc. That's where everybody messes up. That's why you can't get your long irons in the air, and why a lot of you slice them into oblivion. Instead of just moving the ball forward on our arc and swinging left so hard, we're actually going to move our body back on the arc so that the ball position goes forward. Now we can have a better drop sequence on the way down. We can get into the golf ball a little bit more shallow. We're going to talk about that next. Okay, so now that we've kind of changed our perception on how we're going to think about getting into the golf ball, and we know that we've got to use the back section of our arc to get into this golf ball, which in turn would make us come a little bit more from the inside, which means that we need to drop it on the way down a little bit more efficiently. This is how we are going to practice it. I'm going to preface this whole downswing sequence by saying the lazier you are, the better. You don't need to use all of the muscle you've got and pull this club down and really yank on the club into the golf ball. In fact, the less you do that and the more you can quote unquote lose control and be lazy on the way down, the better you will end up hitting it downrange. Okay, if you stuck around this long, I really want to say thank you. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe for more, but this is how I actually want you to practice your long irons so that we can increase our legitimate skill level with them. So I want you to envision that the golf ball is out here at 12 o'clock and a line back here level with our toes is at 3 o'clock. It's going to be very important for the first few drills that I want you to do. So I'm going to go ahead and set up to this golf ball, making it my 12 o'clock position. And I'm going to pull this alignment stick back until it is parallel to my target line, directly on my toe line, making that 3 o'clock position. All I need you to do now is go ahead and take it up to the top, and once you're there, go ahead and take your trail hand off. We need to get very comfy with this lead arm sliding down on our chest until our hand drops directly onto that 3 o'clock line. I'm not pulling this out towards the golf ball. I'm letting this come directly down until our hand drops on that 3 o'clock line. Your club shaft and your club head can drop anywhere from 4 o'clock to 3 o'clock. That just depends on how much drop you need. If you really need to work coming from the inside and you want to hit a draw, you're going to have this club drop a lot more to the 4 o'clock position. An easy way to think about it is when I'm up at the top, if I do not move my chest and I drop my hand down onto that 3 o'clock position, this club shaft is parallel to my chest right now. From there, I will turn out into the golf ball. You can see that the club head would be traveling on that arc from 3 o'clock out into the golf ball up to 12. The lazier you can get at maintaining your turn or keeping your back to the target and allowing that lead arm to slide down across your chest and finish on that 3 o'clock position without the shaft standing up, the better your long irons can be. Now, there is no negotiation about that. You have to get it down into this position. You have to be able to use this back part of the arc if you want to get the club head out into the golf ball repeatedly with long irons. If we have any form of shaft stand up or any form of avoiding that 3 o'clock where we can't use that back part of our arc, our long irons are really going to struggle. So if you're practicing on grass, I would highly recommend using a tee at first. If you're on mats, do what you want, but we're going to tee a few golf balls up. Also, no, you do not need a can of spray paint and go paint an arc. You don't need to do that. You're just going to need this one alignment stick back here at 3 o'clock right on your toes. But this is how I want you to start practicing your long irons. We are going to take it back only halfway until your hands, shaft, and club head are all directly over that 3 o'clock position, and they're somewhere around belt height. Once you're here, flex just the club head back to 4 o'clock. You can go ahead and let that weight come forwards and simply start turning out into the golf ball. If you need to add a few pumps in, going back and forth, be my guest, that's totally fine. But we're going to take it back to 3 o'clock, flex the club head back to 4, weight's going to nudge forward, turn your attention back to the ball and just chip it until you can start to get them to come right out on line. That's what it feels like to get into the golf ball with a long iron. Or if you're somebody that really wants to hit a draw, that's what it is. When you're doing this, I really want you to focus on the direction that the club head's traveling into the golf ball. So if I get my hand shaft and club head over that 3 o'clock position, flex the club head back to where it would be pointed at 4 o'clock, and I watch the club head travel into the golf ball, you will be able to see it come from the inside, from that shallow spot, using the back portion of this arc. Because if I were to get to this 3 o'clock, flex it back to 4, and move this club head straight out to 12, that really wouldn't work all that well, would it? After that half swing, we're gonna nudge it up to 3/4, let your weight go first, stay looking backwards, hands down to 3 o'clock, as the shaft is either pointed at 4 or 3. Anywhere in that gap, you're gonna be okay. Find which one is most comfortable for you. So up to 3/4, hands down, we are not turning yet. Attention back to the golf ball, go ahead and chip it. Especially if you're new to this, be patient with your turn. Hold your turn, look backwards, watch where that club's being dropped to. That way you can manage when your hands are coming down, you're not standing it up, and you're actually delivering it back into that correct position. Plus, learning to hold your turn like that will make all of that easier in the long run anyways. And don't get me wrong, in a real full swing, are you gonna make it all the way back down to that position with your turn not moving? No, absolutely not. You will be turning much before that. But for all intents and purposes, while you're training it, hold it so that you can watch it and actually drop it into the correct zone. Here comes the tricky part, so I need you to hang in there with me for a second. We are going to take it up to a full swing, but I want you to do this in a very specific way. For whatever reason, when I've done this with people, we've gotten really good results, so give this a try. When you have finally made it up to a full swing, I want you to go ahead and take it up, stay looking backwards, get the hands back down to that position, somewhere with the club head between 4 and 3 o'clock, work it out to the golf ball, into impact, then all the way back up, then hit it. When you start to map that out, up, down, into impact, and you reverse out of that, it's very easy to recreate it on the way back down. Yeah, you might look a little crazy on the range, but when you start to understand how to actually hit your long irons, it'll all be worth it. Now, if you hate everything that we've talked about so far, that's totally fine. The one piece of information that I want you to take home is how can you get from 3 o'clock to 12 o'clock? With your long irons, you have to use that back portion of your arc. If you can do that, I honestly really don't care what your swing looks like or what you do in your swing. But that's really the only way to make your long irons and your long clubs consistent. Yes, it'll favor a draw in the beginning. I'll show you how to curve the ball both ways down the road. Once you get comfy at it, the whole goal is to get that position on the way down as lazy as possible to make sure that we're using the back portion of that arc. If you think you got it, go ahead and rip a few. I understand that that's probably a little bit different of a lesson than what you're used to seeing on here about how to hit your long irons, but I promise you, that's really the only piece that matters. So regardless of what your swing looks like, if you can master that back little portion into the golf ball, you'll be totally fine. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments down below what part of the swing or what part of the golf bag you guys want to talk about next.